Hi, my name is Jessie Borelli, and I'm a professor of psychology at Pomona College. I'm going to talk about some really exciting work that I did in collaboration with several colleagues, including Dave Sabara from the University of Arizona, on the topic of military deployment and its impact on couple relationships. When most of us think about military deployment, we think about the myriad challenges inherent in going through a deployment. Not only are couples physically apart for long periods of time, but they also contend with the threat of losing their spouse or their spouse sustaining permanent injury. And in addition to that, there's lots of challenges to communication, even between the couple while they're apart. In support of the fact that deployments are really challenging, there's some evidence that shows that military couples who have been through deployments are more likely to get divorced. And there's also evidence that shows that those couples who have been through deployments are more at risk for spousal abuse or domestic violence. And yet, in spite of that, most military couples weather deployments remarkably well with intact relationship satisfaction and coming out strong on the other side. And this is kind of perplexing to those of us who think that deployment would be a really, really stressful experience. Our goal in this study was to try to understand and measure the factors that might protect specifically the non-deployed spouses, so the spouses who stay at home while their service member spouses go off to war. So we wanted to assess and measure which type of factors might protect the non-deployed spouses in terms of their relationship satisfaction across a period of deployment. We were interested in looking at two different potential protective factors, both of which have to do with the way in which a non-deployed spouse thinks about and kind of mentally organizes information about her relationship with her spouse. And those two indicators were attachment security, which is basically the idea of how secure, how safe, and how connected a spouse feels to the other spouse. And the other construct that we were interested in measuring was the degree to which the non-deployed spouse had a communal orientation towards the relationship. And a communal orientation basically means having an attitude of, we can do this together, we're on the same team, we're going to approach problems as a team. So we were interested then in how these two constructs would relate to relationship satisfaction in non-deployed spouses across a deployment. We assessed our hypotheses by following 37 non-deployed spouses, all of which were female, across a period of deployment for their spouse. We assessed them 2 weeks before the deployment, 2 weeks into the deployment, and 2 weeks following their spouse's return from the deployment. And at the different time points, we had them complete a series of questionnaires, including assessments of their relationship satisfaction, or how satisfied and committed and happy they were with their relationship with their spouse at that time. And during the assessment that occurred during the deployment, we also had them complete what we call a stream of consciousness speech sample. So we asked them to talk in a stream of consciousness way about their feelings, their thoughts and feelings about the deployment and their relationship with their spouse. And we didn't give them any other constraints other than that. And that bit of speech sample formed the main basis for our analyses. We took those speech samples and transcribed them verbatim and then subjected them to two different coding systems, one of which coded for attachment security and one coded for communal orientation. And what we found supported our hypotheses. So both of our indicators of psychological orientation towards the relationship were associated with relationship satisfaction over the course of the deployment. The degree to which a spouse demonstrated a we type of orientation or a communal orientation was positively associated with relationship satisfaction during the deployment, and the degree to which the spouse demonstrated having attachment security to their spouse during the deployment was then associated with their relationship satisfaction following the deployment. So both of these factors then appear to be prospective predictors of relationship satisfaction across the deployment. We were really excited by these findings, and we encourage other people to follow up our research with subsequent studies. We're particularly interested in studies in which they can include a larger sample size than the one that we had. One of the challenges we faced with this research was we found it was very difficult to retain participants across the different time points. So it'll be interesting to see if our results come out similarly in different samples. In addition, we think that our findings might actually have implications for couples going through all types of relationship challenges, not just deployments. So potentially they apply to couples going through things like chronic illness or prolonged work separations or other types of stressors in the family. We encourage you to read our paper to learn more. Thanks.